This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 890, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you, who are washing their hands. You guys haven't really done that in a while.
No, we don't care about that anymore.
You dirty, dirty listeners. My name is Ryan Haupt, and this week I am joined by my co-host, Joshua Flanagan.
Hi. I'm not going to lie. It feels a little weird to have you call me your co-host. But
yeah, I'm just, yep.
I know. I wrote it. I left it there. I looked at it and I was like, that's correct, but whatever.
And you are joining me here on iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 890. Every week, one of us picks the book they liked best from their stack of comics, and that book gets called the Pick of the Week. This week, Josh, I did something I've never done, or today, actually, before recording, I did something I've never done before in my entire life. I gave blood.
Oh, wow.
I've never given blood before.
Just on impulse? Like it wasn't a planned thing? It was spontaneous?
Something I used to have a really big fear of needles as a kid, and then I got over that, but then just never got in the habit of like giving blood whenever the blood drive came around, and I just decided a while back that it's something I should probably do if I'm eligible to do it. I'll find out when they run all the tests and stuff, but yeah, and the American Red Cross is headquartered here in DC, so I just biked down there and gave. They have like an app and everything. You like track. You can like earn points.
Did you consider that afterwards, cycling around in the August sun, having given up a liter of the good stuff?
It was a relatively cool day here,
okay.
And I did consider that, but again, parking, it's just not worth it. And apparently, I've known that I have good veins for a while now, easy to hit, and I filled the bag in like half the time that an average man would have. They said it usually takes 10 to 25 minutes to fill a bag, and I filled it in 5. So yeah, if you've never given blood before, you can just download this app and just start with the Red Cross and just start doing it. It's that easy.
Let's read the next thing. What happens with the comics each week? Now
that we're off the needle, we're going to talk about that book and the other books from the week. The Patron Pick. We're going to answer some listener mail if we have time. I hope we do, but I might have just shot us in the foot on that one.
Sure.
Here's your spoiler warning. Exercise some caution this week. Josh, much to my continued forgetfulness, you had the pick.
I did have the pick of the week, and I really relished the moment where you realized that you didn't have it, because I know that feeling, because I can't ever remember anything. And so every week I think, wait, do I have it? And then when I find out I don't, I go, oh, thank God.
You know, what's funny about that is not only did I keep forgetting that I didn't have the pick, I kept forgetting separate to that I didn't have the patron power as well. So I kept thinking of patron powers.
Oh, you're golden.
And then not writing them down.
Yeah, you don't even need that blood today. You're fine.
Yeah.
I'll handle the lifting. All right, so the good thing is, though, is that not really a heavy week, not a light week, sort of right down the middle for me. But it was a really delightful weekend. I had almost no trouble picking my pick of the week, which is Fantastic Four number 703 or number 10 in the current nomenclature. This is another Ryan North does a Twilight Zone episode sort of issue of the Fantastic Four. It exists within the larger story that is going on, but it don't have to. You could take it or leave it in the greater story. It's just a thing that happens between the panels that they decided to do a little formal short story about. When I say formal, I mean that I think it focused very much on the form. It exists in 4 or 5 parts, actually, that as we sort of go through each of the characters and we jump forward in time, which is something that I think Ryan North is a very thoughtful writer. I mean, like it's I talk to lots of smart people all the time, and when I don't think I'm a slouch. And when I got off my interview with him, I was like, wow, he's very intelligent. And yes.
He's also tall and pretty good looking. Like,
well, I was gonna say is it wasn't just a lot of times intelligent people maybe have some self-doubts. He's intelligent and he knows it, but not in a dicky way. There's a lot going on for him, is what I'm saying. But either way, I really like that it keeps showing in the work, and because he's not a dyed-in-the-wool Marvel, superhero comic book purist, he's playing with the form a little bit, and it fits really well into this Fantastic Four run. Second part here is that we have art. We have Leandro Fernandez. I love Leandro Fernandez. We don't get a lot of him. I discovered him on Queen and Country. Where people were like, we're not sure if we like this guy. I believe he's Spanish, but I'm not sure, because he would draw these long noses. He's kind of gotten away from that, but his style is so elegant and liquid and just it's beautiful. And he's done nothing but get better over the years. Before, there was a lot of style to it, and he got by that way. But now, it's just he's got it. He knows exactly what he's doing. Whenever he shows up on a book, for me, it is an absolute delight. And the great part is that like, I had seen ahead of time that he had been the artist, and then kind of forgot about it. And then when I was reading it, I didn't notice at the beginning, and I thought, wow, what is this? This is really good. And then I looked back and I thought, wow, I had no idea, but now I see it. So it's just, that surprise. And again, Ryan North kind of on these issues is always supplying some kind of surprise with the way that he's telling the story. And then, you have a great artist, Jesus Bertov on colors, of course, holding it down. The bass player of comic book is Joey Caramagna on letters. And I was probably 2/3 of the way through, and I just went, there's no way this isn't pick of the week. And I told you that earlier. I was like, I have 3 books to go. I would be shocked. I believe I said I would eat my hat.
You did say that.
If there was which is not a thing I would say, but I did. So what we've got here is, you read this? You're with me?
Yes, I did. Okay. And it's great to have a Fantastic Four book that does these sort of harder sci-fi stories. That's fun. It brings it back around to being like, it's a comic about a family that goes on adventures, less so than them being superheroes. I don't mind them being superheroes, but I like having both. And this is just, it's scratching that itch in a really fun way. This issue is really gave me the similar vibes to that novel I recommended to you and Connor a little while back, Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Because it's a lot of just like people in sleep pods and stories taking place over hundreds of years. And I know you love a time dilation story, but this is sort of a time out of sync story.
Yeah. And I was going to bring that up, is that, again, that sort of formal thing is that in the beginning you have basically it's kind of fantasy sci-fi. It's kind of hard sci-fi. It's sort of a haunted
house. Like it's
yeah, but it's based in at least a simulacrum of science. Like okay, this is if you're trying to think about how time works in different places, then this has something to it that's not just made up nonsense, but also sort of all fits the bill. So you have this spaceship. It is like a world. It is an arc ship, a world ship. All of the I don't know the resources. I don't know exactly how it works. Of this species of being is on a long journey to go somewhere else to save their species. And there's a series of caretakers, and they wake from a pod, and and they find out like, hey, we're stuck. The engines are on. We're not moving. Looks outside the window, and it's Johnny Storm, who appears to be stock still, and they think he's a monster. Blah 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 blah. That guy dies. Next
gets driven insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like over time, driven insane, but eventually, like, and then somebody else pops up 100 years later. And so the 4 sections are each 100 years, and you're seeing the Fantastic Four out there, each of them. So right away I was like, oh, time's different here. That's cool. Then the last guy pops out after the 4th person has died, and he says, you know what, I'm thinking about this all wrong. And normally, if a character narrates their thought process and goes through everything, it is lazy as shit. But I was like, I can hear this. I can hear the guy working this out, and he's not doing it on paper. He's telling us because this is a comic book story or whatever. And he's like, well, wait, maybe they're, if this and this and this, then maybe they're not trying to harm us. And then, we sort of wrap the thing up and we see them be heroes. And there's this little bit that I loved is that Ben Grimm is grousing because that's what he does. And he's like, so they don't even know we did anything for them? A little thanks would be great, and he, and then but also relates it back to the fact that like a little thanks would be great. But it also ties into the fact like he feels like he's a monster, like he's underappreciated, that like he just wants that love and that validation for the thing that he's doing. Then we cut forward, and this here's your spoiler, like this culture has survived, and they revere the Fantastic Four as the heroes who saved them. Now, the Fantastic Four don't ever know it, and they will never know it, but it happened.
I like it.
It was so tidy, and it was so thoughtful, and just like, I don't know, it had all those little elements of like a really fun sci-fi short story, but it was the comic book characters you recognize. It was like, when some people come in and they want to do an experiment and it just so happens that it's Batman in it. Like, no, it's a Fantastic Four story. It's just a great Fantastic Four story that's imaginative.
Yep. And I like the stakes. I like that the stakes are, the Fantastic Four are not in any danger really at any point in the story. The stakes are, and Reed even says this explicitly at one point, like, we're spending like a couple hours here trying to fix this problem, but like people are living and dying their entire lifetimes the longer we take. And so I like that, there were stakes that were about other people that they were trying to help. And I like that it wasn't perfect. Like there are people who die in some pretty actually kind of horrific ways. Like if I hadn't read X-Men 25 this week because I saw it on the list, this would have been the most gruesome comic I read, but
it was perfect. It was just a perfect little issue. And what's funny is I know that this has been pick of the week several times. And a lot of times when a book is very good, this is like a problem of 4 people on Earth. A lot of times if a book is really good and it is clearly a pick of the week to me for this, like this was easily the most enjoyable and I thought inventive book I read. There's a problem where I've talked about this book so many times. I don't have anything else to say about it. But I've never read an issue like this. This was a whole other thing. Different artist was on it, doing a different thing. That style of story, like the skills that Ryan North has, are all still there, but it's being employed in a completely different way, which is done over and over through this 10-issue short run. It's a delight.
Yep. It is a somewhat of a masterclass in how to do this kind of comic.
Yeah. Doctor Strange, number 432 or 6. I read after Fantastic Four. So if there was going to be any books that caused me to eat my hat, this was the closest anything got because it was also another time dilation story. And it was also delightful, not as inventive. We've got Jed MacKay and then one page at the end by Jonathan Hickman. I don't know what that's about. Seems like there's some sort of event coming up called Gods. Who knows? Wait, no, isn't that the end of Fantastic Four? Did I get that wrong?
It's in the middle of this issue. It's at the end of Fantastic Four. So each issue both had a page by Jonathan Hickman
screwed up my credits. But again, really fun little Doctor Strange story where the Vishanti says, you gotta help us win this war. It's all gonna go down. And so he's like, fine, I'll go. I'm a doctor, not a general, whatever. And it turns out that the war lasts 5,000 years. Now, he doesn't age during that time physically, and he will be returned back in time to where he left. But 5,000 years of war, and he becomes a warlord, killer, bloodthirsty, the general that he's supposed to be to win the war, but it breaks him. And again, I don't think I need to spoil this whole thing, because if you read it, you read it.
Yes.
And I really liked the comic booky ending of it, that they fixed him, that there's a but. And that but is actually, this could be a one shot, but it's actually like going to lead to the next stories. But you could have read it on its own. You could not read any further, and you'd sort of have a really fun little Doctor Strange story, Nature of Man, blah, blah, blah.
I like that all the heroes in the Marvel universe, Stephen Strange seems to be the one who, like, I don't know, they keep finding ways to corrupt him in different ways.
Well, it's almost like, I mean, if you like his kryptonite is ego, as it is Tony Stark's, but I think ego for Doctor Strange works better because he's a surgeon. Like he actually holds lives in his hands, literally. And then he breaks his hands, and I
think Tony Stark is cocky.
Yes, I think that's a good.
Whereas Doctor Strange has a large ego,
and it's justified. Like it's not like there's people who have large egos who are awful, and then there's people who have large egos, and it's actually in every way earned. It doesn't make them pleasant, but they're right. And at the same time, like he knows it. Like he wants to be a good guy. He is a good guy, but Tony's got his alcoholism, and Doctor Strange has his ego. And in this, we see that win, because given enough time, it will defeat him.
And the horrors of war.
That too. Well, it's like all those things. It's that perfect, ridiculous fantasy stew. I'd also be completely remiss to I recognize the name Juan Gideon. Not the regular artist on this, but this art to me was perfect.
It was great.
Just the right kind of cartoony, that the way that his face was drawn, like it's almost got like there's bits where his eyes are closed when they just kind of like Darwin Cook like slits, there was, it doesn't look like Darwin Cook art, but there's a thing with that kind of artist where, there's just a simplicity to it. It's very like outlined cartoony stuff. It had texture and everything, but it was just like drafting.
Yep. And I think the cool thing that Jed MacKay is doing here is this issue is a flashback based on the reveal in the previous issue. And so then
I didn't remember. I was like, I feel like I probably would have known something about this.
Yeah, I had to catch up on a few issues of Doctor Strange this week, so that was fresher for me. But like, the reveal was interesting, and I didn't know what it was referring to. And then this tells you that story, and like, oh, and I'm actually now just as interested to pick up the next issue, having given the backstory. And I actually think it is, even though it is sort of a tangent, a side story, a one-off almost. I like the story that it's plugging into as well. So.
I think that, because at first I was like, wait a minute, there was some story, like, we're not done with that other story. What is going on here? And then I think, they're going to do like a one shot. And then at the end of it, you're like, no, this is going to be relevant. Whereas I think the Fantastic Four story, that's going to be it. I mean, like, it might come back in some form later, but it's not like the big part of the next 10 issues or whatever. Whereas this is going to be a thing. I think my favorite part of this is it takes a little while to notice it. Because, it starts off, the war starts year 1, a couple of pages later, year 12. And you're like, oh, he's there for a while. And then year 15, year 100, year 500. Like, it goes on 1509. Like, you're like, wow, this is really, and you start thinking, even if he gets returned, like, there's no way you're the same. Like he's not even close to the same person. You could not get returned to your life. There's a reveal about, Orgoth, his sort of right-hand man. I left-hand in this. We're sorry. Orgoth's going to be all right from now on. Oh, thank God. There's no way to take that.
He's probably out there swimming around in circles, freaking out his entire family.
Orgoth loses an arm. It's not the left arm, but that would ruin the joke. But there's like a twist with that character, and the sort of little explanation resolution of it is beautiful. And again, Jed MacKay, just like an artist, a writer who just fits into Marvel so well. But this story was also a surprise in the way that it was. It wasn't, again, I wouldn't have been like, oh, this is like one of the other Jed MacKay stories. It isn't.
Well, I mentioned last week on the show that I had rewatched Palm Springs, which I thought held up really well and was still a lot of fun, even in like a non-COVID lockdown context, like when it originally came out. And this kind of had was sort of a Groundhog Day-ish kind of, because he's just fighting the same war every single day for 5,000 years.
It's 5,000 years, like, their clothes don't change. They kind of always look the same. They're always just fighting. It's not like a siege. It's just, like a bunch of monsters attack and they push them off. That's what the whole thing is. And
like, you never, in Palm Springs and in Groundhog Day, you never find out how long they're stuck in the loop. But at one point, somebody asked Andy Samberg, like, what's his job? And he's like, I don't remember. I've been stuck in this wedding long enough that I don't know that anymore. So like, it gets to what you're saying about like, you could not come out of that the same person you went in.
Right. God, it's really great. The art around the Vishanti, that was all very like sketchy line based, really like gave you this sense of other when those characters were around, because the rest of it didn't look like that. So they appeared to be coming out of the ether in like a art style that I'm not all that, like, it's not overdone. It's not a thing that happens a lot, but it instantly reads. I thought that was really cool. I love this. I really like there were some issues this week that I really, really enjoyed. So that was really nice. So I assume that you kept up with X. Have you been reading? We talked about it last week. I know. But
I've not been reading the X books. I read the Hellfire Gala one just because it was the patron pick, and then I saw that this was on the script, and it was a 25th issue. So I figured, I can. It's probably going to be oversized, but I'll give it a shot and see where we're going.
I enjoyed that last thing, so we can continue. Same writer, same stuff. What'd you think?
I still don't know that I really care about this whole Orcus organization and what they're trying to do. Like that, I don't know who this character is who's got like the playing card symbol on his forehead. I keep thinking it's Mr. Sinister, but then it's not.
Same. I barely know who Mr. Sinister is, so.
And so it's like, I don't know what this character looks to me like a mutant, so why is he so against the mutants?
I had to take a step back with that character because I don't know who he is. I couldn't tell you his name or whatever, but at least I recognize him when he shows up. But like, why are you anti-mutant when you clearly look like you have a club, ace of clubs on your head? Like that's not a normie thing. That's not normal. And he dresses like a super villain, like he looks like either a vampire or something. And what I had to do to reconcile myself with that, I was like, it's comic book. He's a super villain. Okay, fine. Like that doesn't have to be the thing that I hang my hat on. If anything, with this issue, you are hanging your hat on Kitty Pryde or one of her many other identities, which they made very clear in this, that there have been a bunch of them, and it's kind of interesting used in this context. And so now she is Shadowcat again, which I vaguely remember, who is, like if Wolverine was Kitty Pryde. Like she's been trained by the best ghost evil ninja ever, and she's killing people. And boy howdy.
Yeah, that was a brutal scene. I was actually kind of shocked that like there wasn't a warning on the. Maybe there was a warning on the front of the comic. No,
there's no kids reading this. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but I mean, they used to have that like Punisher Max series. Like this was like max level violence.
She kills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 heavily armed. I don't know. They look like S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra all mixed up in one, and a little bit of Adam Strange. The Orcus people. Right?
Yeah.
It's interesting because I don't read X-Men comics a lot, and I know how comic books work, but they surround her, and I was like, that's pretty bad. Can she do this? I haven't thought about it, but like she brutally murders them.
Yeah, and I think I realized the path we were about to go down when the first guy just point blank tries to shoot her in the head. And it's not like, because I feel like a lot of times in comics or in stuff that's theoretically for a younger audience, it's always like a laser blaster. It's never just like bullets. And the fact that you see that there is a bullet passing through her head as she phases and starts the fight, I'm just like, oh, this is real. This is
and Duggan goes full Frank Miller. I mean, like the bullet goes through, and the next caption is, the first one died whistling, but only because he was trying to breathe through a shattered windpipe. Stuffs a gun in the one guy's head, and that scrambles his brains and melds a couple of other people.
Hand grenades into two guys' chests.
I really like it when comic book writers extend, not always, because sometimes it's dumb, but good comic book writers can take a power that seems really kind of basic, and surely was, they didn't think of all these things when they originally conceived of it, but there's like, what's the worst, most dangerous thing you can do with this power?
Yeah.
You see it with Sue Storm. Like, no, you just put a little bubble inside somebody's brainstem and call it a day. This is that, and it's, again, there's a fine line between just being gross, and I'm trying to think, exploitative is not the word, but that's sort of like shocking, but here it's thoughtful, shocking and thoughtful. I don't know. Like,
well, it's interesting because the situation Kitty Pryde is put in is whatever Orcus does that deactivates the Krakoa gates that Kitty has never been able to use suddenly makes them available to her. So now she's the only mutant that can go through them. And she falls through it, and a bunch of Orcus people see her, and so it becomes sort of a spy ops thing of just like the enemy can't know that this option is available to her, so she has no choice but to make sure none of these guys walks away from the situation able to talk about it.
However, it's pretty clear that she's the one who did that when they come upon this scene.
Except no, she said she phased all the bodies into the ground afterwards.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's I think I did miss that, but good. You have to explain that.
Yeah.
Or don't. Who cares?
It was cool. It was cool. I thought it was a nice touch that they explained that she did that.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I enjoyed it. Again, I don't know if I keep reading this forever, but I was like, all right, I really enjoyed that. I'm gonna see what's going on. And part of the thing with X-Men, and for some reason that Hellfire Gala thing didn't do it, is there's usually too many characters I don't know and don't care about, and I can't get a hold of anything. But I know enough about Kitty Pryde, and like there's basically three main characters in this book. There's Emma Frost, Kitty Pryde, and to a certain extent Kamala Khan. And I was like, all right, I can go with that.
I thought the Cyclops scene in this was good too.
Oh yeah, yep. A lot of body horror going on. That's the thing now, man.
Yeah, vibranium eye claspers.
Ugh.
Yeah,
you can pull them through the hole the size of a baseball, I think is what he says. It's pretty grim. Pretty grim stuff. Did you read Star Wars Dark Droids?
On your recommendation, I did. And this was a good week for this was a very kind of hard sci-fi story for the Star Wars universe.
So I was reading it and actually really enjoying it, because this can go wrong. Charles Soule, writing the story, who's sort of the main Star Wars guy at Marvel right now. Luke Ross, who I haven't seen in quite some time. He was the regular artist on the first big chunk of Palmiotti and Gray's Jonah Hex. I was a big fan of his work then. what we have here is a story that really like, well, what about these droids? It's a sci-fi story. It's a sci-fi horror story. And and at the end, basically, I was really into it. I was like, could this be a pick of the week? But I think at the end, when it tied back into Star Wars proper, and then I realized it was going to be a whole like event over the course of months. There's a calendar that goes through December here with this story, which is called Metal, which, by the way, was already fucking used. I was kind of like, I wish they'd let it stop earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so when you look at the Star Wars universe, it's an obvious question of like, why has there never been a droid uprising, right?
Right.
Because they get outfitted for war. They're clearly stronger and more powerful than many of the humans that they work with. R2-D2 can fly for some reason. So, this story kind of posits a droid that decides to do that and starts replicating itself across a Star Destroyer and all manner of, again, gruesome death and killing of Imperials. And excuse me. And at that point I was like, well, I mean, I'm not that sad that imps that we're taking out Imperials. Like, and then it lost me a little bit when they go to this colony of like sentient droids that live apart. Like, I was just like, they
want to be free, but they're not evil. Like, they don't like that this guy's killing other robots.
That didn't feel super Star Wars-y to me.
Honestly, none of it did. Yeah. Except that there's a subcategory of things, and I'm learning to accept it, of Star Wars stories that are not like Star Wars, but are taking place in the Star Wars world.
Right.
And I think Andor, that show is a great example of that. Like, to me, it's not very Star Wars, but I thought it was really cool. And by putting it in the context of Star Wars, then I understood a lot that you didn't have to tell me.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, I think we've always said that the line in the sand has to be time travel. They never do a time travel Star Wars story. I think it would just break something fundamental. I did love the sequence of the Imperial shuttle coming out of hyperspeed and the little mouse droid launching itself down the ramp at the Mon Cal cruiser. The one science thought, because you and I often talk about how like gravity doesn't quite work like it's supposed to.
You said time, but to me, and I know they're related, but like gravity is the thing that you can't talk about in Star Wars.
Yeah, and
can't.
I don't know, like, wouldn't this mouse droid firing the cables at the
still slam into it?
No, wouldn't the cables start pushing it backwards? Like, because if you throw, it's
I assume it inserted the ends of the cables and latched. And then also, if the cables are, I don't know if prehensile is the right word at all, but like they could push back on them.
Yeah,
so
I just think it
dampen.
Would. Yeah, it would. I guess it was moving fast enough because the shuttle just came out of light speed. But I think the act of firing, like if you are in space and you are holding a baseball and you throw the baseball, you go backwards.
Yeah, but the mass would make a difference.
It would.
The backward thrust of the cables going forward wouldn't have had enough mass to certainly send him backwards. Maybe slow him slightly, but that would have been preferable.
Yep, that was just the one little thought I had in terms of like, would the physics of that actually work?
Speaking of that, I have to say, so I went back, I was reading and I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. And so we see the one droid infect everything and kill all the stuff on the Star Destroyer. And I hadn't quite recognized the device of when we see the purple ovals, we're seeing it through the evil robot eyes. And then we go to this weird robot citadel in the Clockwork Tower or whatever, and they're like, it was Peter or Petey or whatever he was, and I was like, what are they talking about? And so I go back and I see that like this mouse droid is sort of in the foreground and background of all these different shots. He sees all the things going on. The mouse droid hacks into the communication system, and you see from the evil point of view them doing that, and then you see it die, and so there's all of this mostly wordless comic book storytelling. So that sequence is all, there's no dialogue, and the sequence you just mentioned, it's just 2 pages in space, which was great. I was like, this is great comic book storytelling. Yeah. Luke Ross killing it with droids and spaceships. And the rebellion, the frigate, that ship is so well drawn. What an awesome design. Just like it was a bunch of comic book goodness. Was it a good Star Wars story? No. Do I want it to be part of Star Wars? No.
But I especially don't want it to be part of Star Wars with Luke and Leia and the gang.
And yeah, C-3PO, everything that happens at the end, I was like, I don't need that. But whatever, like I can separate it, I guess, in a way that I think that I was going to say I can do this in comic books easier than I can other stuff, but I think that Andor is exactly that thing. Andor, it's not Star Wars. It's like it's not really. It just takes place. It's a different kind of story that takes place in the Star Wars universe, and we can use that context to enjoy the story. But it doesn't. It's so unrelated to like Luke, Han, and Leia and the things that I loved about it.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing, and so I enjoy it in a different way. But I could also take it or leave it. Like I don't need that. I don't. It's fine if that never happened. Fine. I'm not gonna get mad about it. I'm not gonna like all of it. But good is good. You want a nerd I am? I saw that the colorist on this was Alex Sinclair, and I was like, that's a DC guy. What's he doing on a Marvel book? And I had to double check, and I was like, yes. So I was like, we've had a big movement here, whether it's just a freelance thing moving over or not. But they don't tend to share colorists or letterers. The big two. They just don't. There's a couple of folks. Clayton Cowles is one. He does letters mostly for Marvel. He's one of the VC guys. Those are people who work for Heliopolis, but like Tom King has him on every single book he does. I asked him about that once. I was like, why do you always work with him? He's like, best he is at what he does. I was like, fair enough. So anyways, that whole like line of thought that I just had led me to the thought that like, I haven't had a letterer on the show for a while.
Yeah.
I need to have that conversation again with somebody. You put Sins of the Salton Sea #3 on this script.
I did. I've still been reading this. It is the crime book by Ed Brisson and C.P. Smith. And are you still reading this?
Absolutely.
I didn't like this issue as much as the first two, but I'm still, I don't know. I'm a guy who likes a creepy cult story, and this, has become more that than a crime heisty book.
I like a creepy cult story, but I don't like when the creepy cult actually has some sort of supernatural thing. I don't mind it if they're crazy people, but I don't want there to actually be aliens and apocalypses.
Well, I like the stories where you as the viewer, the reader, the whatever, don't know. Like there's the most recent season of Black Mirror, that Demon 79, like the idea was...
I haven't watched it yet, so
this is not really spoiling anything, but
okay.
it's unclear if the person is having a psychotic episode or the things are actually happening. And
I don't like that usually.
Okay, well then you might not like this particular story, but
that's fair. No, I mean there's value in all sorts of things.
The thing I don't like, the one thing I don't like about this book right now is the head of the bad cult people, Cecil or whatever his name is. I don't like how powerful they already are. I guess they're making a comment on Scientology, but I think this story would be working better for me if it was the cult itself was a little less powerful and had like...
They're pretty omnipotent.
Yeah.
I think the strengths here, what I liked about this issue is that I guess before he joined G.I. Joe, Rock and Roll was a thief. That's a G.I. Joe joke for old people. The main character makes me think of Rock and Roll from G.I. Joe. They give us a little backstory about what happened there, why at the beginning he was, escaping from society and completely dejected and didn't, bad stuff happened to him as a result of a heist gone wrong.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
Well, retribution from a heist that went right.
I really, not the point. I really liked. I thought the characterization of that guy and the way he was written and drawn in his conversations with the girl and his I don't know, his being, his motivation. That was really well done for a comic book. It felt very real to me. In a way, or just well conceived, I guess. And instead of being cliche, because I think I say this in a very, it's close to being a cliche, which close to being a cliche, but not. It's a pretty good way to be in a story. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't really like the cult stuff all that much, but if it ends up being more political and societal, then there really are brain-sucking apocalyptic aliens. I'll be fine with that, but it's not enough to get me to go off of it, because at least this is an interesting book.
And it's actually, unlike a lot of the big two books, it's telling us this is 3 of 5, so it's like 5 issues. I'll stick with this for 5 issues.
Sure, yeah. I think what's interesting to me is that the Salton Sea is a real place. It,
Did you ever go when you lived in California?
no, I was aware of it, but it, basically there's a environmental disaster because people did dumb shit, and now what you have is a completely economically destroyed area that is
Toxic
also
environment.
Yeah, like every single thing is bad about it, and people who find themselves there find themselves in trouble, and there's bad shit and bad people going on. That is enough. That is enough to set your story.
You're saying it's a hive of scum and villainy?
You don't need to have, like, if you were watching the movie Heat and then all of a sudden there was an alien, you'd be like, you don't need this. This movie's great. You don't need that. But comic books need to do that. And I'm hoping that at least they tread lightly. That person's a vet, but
We'll see. I mean, there's a really great movie called The Invitation. Came out probably about 10 years ago. And it's sort of it's also kind of a creepy cult story, but based around a dinner party that goes to some strange places. And that movie has a reveal at the end that isn't exactly a supernatural reveal, but makes the entire movie so much more haunting in the retrospect. So like something like that, which if you haven't seen, I'm not going to spoil it because that's definitely one worth enjoying directly. I would be cool with here, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's still worth reading. I mean, in the end, what I'm talking about, it isn't objective, it's subjective. I don't like that so many comic book stories do that. I don't think it's a mistake. I'm clearly in the minority. I think that the form can do without it sometimes, and we lean on it. Anyway, where you can just lean way into it, though, is over in Adventures of Superman, John Kent, number 6.
I'm enjoying the solo John Kent stories written by Tom Taylor more than I would have thought I would have. I think, Connor is correct that getting rid of the capes makes these uniforms not quite work, which is an issue. But I think the really smart thing here is, make Jonathan Kent the blue electric Superman. Like, make that the evolution of his powers. And that to me is a really smart way to distinguish him from Clark.
I agree. With what you said, but I didn't even really think about that as an aspect of it. I like the character. I just do. It's very interesting that, like, you're the kid of the greatest guy and you have tons of power. What's that like? Now, what does that do to DC continuity and legacy? Well, it fucks it all up. But on its own, it's an interesting idea. If you're a parent or a kid, these are things that you think about, or would, I would assume. And then, Tom Taylor is very, very, very good at this. Having John Kent in the situation that Tom Taylor, I don't know if he created, but he guided it of
the injustice
thing, and having like an element from the main DC universe go there. It was done great. Like, he
I really
embodies what's great about Clark Kent.
Yeah, and I think I feel like we've seen the Batman has a plan to bring down the Justice League done a lot since the original, was it Tower of Babel?
Yeah.
And I don't know that we've ever seen a Superman has to take down the Justice League, because why would Superman ever, like, Clark would never do that, but Jonathan is put in a situation here where he's sort of got to, like, make sure that the Justice League can't team up and whoop them. And so, like, the way he goes about that, the way he prioritizes, he says, I gotta do the Flash first, because if the Flash is not willing to sit this one out, I'm screwed, I'm done. So, like, he has to, like, convince Barry with a super speed talk.
I loved that. I thought that was a great scene.
Yeah, and then, he's able to take Hawkgirl's wings and take Hal's ring, and then Diana, like, he's like, well, I can't get her, like, literally I just have to get her off the board, so he, like, flies her to Jupiter and ditches her.
Yep. Yeah, it's all good.
Because he's like, at this distance, I'm fast enough that she won't be back in time. And then the hug, like, totally caught me off guard and really worked.
Yeah. No, it was a good issue. It was fun. Real quick, listeners probably remember that I put Howard Chaykin on our Talksplode show and talked to him, but that largely came about the fact that I have just been enamored with Hey Kids Comics since it started. We're in the middle of volume 3, actually near the end of volume 3, which is the last volume. I'm so upset. 5th issue. What we have here, and I don't even need to dwell on it, but it's the 1986 issue, or at least the mid 80s that culminates in this. So, Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, American Flag. It's pretty clear who Howard Chaykin is in this one. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle guys, Eastman and Laird. This was the first time I've ever read an issue of this where I was like, I know who every single person is supposed to be in this. I loved it. It was great. It's funny though, because like all the other issues have a certain air of mystery where I had to think about them. I had to think about this at all. And so to me, I just read it. I was like, oh, this is a point of view of the writer, but also I think he incorporates other points of view in here that aren't necessarily his, because he's got so many people talking about it. I loved it. It's just great. I could live in this world. I guess we do live in this world, but you know what I mean? I can keep going. Moving along, real quickly, I wanted to mention Hellboy and the B.P.R.D. 1957 From Below. This is a one shot. I do not believe it as a number. It's a 1957 Hellboy story. That's what they do now. They tell you when it is at the beginning, and it's a one-shot story. All Hellboy stories are basically the same, and it's the thing that you come to expect about them is that like same shit, different day. You know, that's Hellboy basically. And this is good, just like all. They have a very consistent quality about them. However, I'm reading this book. And I go, I don't recognize what this art is. It's pretty good. I like it. I flipped it back to the beginning. I see it's our old pal Mike Norton. Mike Norton,
I completely missed that. That's...
Yeah, longtime comic book artist, definite, friend of the show. I
haven't seen Chris Roberson's name in a while either. He's a buddy.
Yeah, he's been doing some of these. I think his name's been, Mignola is always listed on story, but I have my suspicions. Anyway, I just, Lee Lowridge on colors and Clem Robbins, that's an all-star fucking team right there.
Yeah.
It looked great. He did, the thing about Hellboy to me is his posture and his aloofness and his same shit, different dayness about it. Like, he's just not impressed by the monsters. Every time a monster shows up, most people go, oh my God, he goes, crap. Just more of this stuff I got to clean up. And like, if you do that right, you do a good Hellboy. Mm-hmm. And it was a great Hellboy. I enjoyed it. I was just happy to see, there's no reason for me why Mike Norton shouldn't be doing lots of mainstream books still. It's a guy who just he knows storytelling, great monster in this, wonderful draftsman, all the things that you want out of good comic book stuff. So it's great to see him. I let him know. I was like, that issue was great. I was really happy to see you on there. Great work.
I feel like it's been a while since we've had Hellboy in a situation where like the threat to him was physical, like he had to fight. I feel like there's been a lot of cerebral and creepy and horror things, but this was just like
personal,
big monster, just take it down. Like,
yep,
keep punching it with that giant rock hand.
So those are the books that we wanted to talk about this week. I could have talked about a lot of books. I really enjoyed my comics this week.
I was about it. We covered my stack.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But each week, the patrons, the people who contribute at patreon.com get to vote on a book that they would like us to read. And this week, the one who gets the most votes wins. And honestly, I think patrons, I think more of you should vote. I think you're not being represented fully, and I'd like to see it. That's not a complaint about this week's book. This week's book is The Sacrificers #1. It's the new Rick Remender book from his Giant Generator line, published by Image Comics. Would have talked about this anyway.
Yes.
So absolutely would have talked about this anyway. Art by Max Fiamura, colors by Dave McHagg, and by the way, I believe there were no credits in what I was reading. But I looked at the cover, but I went, it's Russ Wooten. It's always Russ Wooten with Rick. And I looked at the cover and he was on there and I was like, see, I know. That's the kind of thing I know. I know that Russ Wooten always letters Rick Remender books.
There you go.
He also always lettered Invincible. That's a thing that he does. You want to take it away? You want to, what do you think?
It's sort of two stories that don't really come together. One's about like a bird family of farmers, and there's like a fracas and a Rick Remender continuing to work out some of his dad issues with a whooping, and then there's this sort of like fantasy castle princess, dad is a big fire monster
son
thing,
kind of thing.
Yeah. And then we end on a sad note where like apparently in this culture the bird people have to like give up one of their kids as a sacrificial cog in this machine of this empire they're living under. And I don't know, did you read the essay in the back?
I did, which was the thing to me that was interesting. So as I was reading this book, and you pretty much described it, I don't think I could describe it better, nor do I think could anyone, because we don't know what it is yet. So to the extent of, as I was reading it, it is one of those books where there's only so much information given, and so you are supplying context in the absence of that information for a lot of it. And there's two ways this happens. One is that presumably skilled writers, or skilled writers presumably know and are planning for exactly the amount of information that they are giving you. And that is their choice and their technique. The other side of that is when an unskilled writer, a less skilled writer, doesn't know or isn't aware that they're not giving you enough information, or they think they're being good at it, but they're not, or vice versa, where they're giving you way too much information. You have no idea what's important.
Right. And I thought, so that you reminded me of this idea in writing circles, especially writing fiction, about architects versus gardeners. Have you heard this?
Yes, but you're going to have to refresh me.
It's a George R. R. Martin thing. And basically there's, I think a lot of writers fall more in the architects, where they plan out everything that's going to happen before writing the story. And that, I think, is where a lot of these books lose you without meaning to, because they spend the creator has spent so much time world building. They want to share that world with you. So they fire hose it in the first couple of issues, and it's overwhelming. And
what happens is you end up on this track, and if the story leads them away from that track, you have to force it back onto the track because you had the plan for it, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Whereas
gardeners think of the stories as like, I'm planting a seed and I'm going to see where it grows, what it grows into, and I'll guide it, I'll prune it, I'll trim it, I'll water it, all this other stuff. And George R. R. Martin is like super far on the gardener spectrum, which is one of the reasons that, like, when things fall apart for characters in the Song of Ice and Fire series, why it hits so hard is because they've been acting like real people who aren't being told what to do by a writer. And so all the follies and failures that they face are usually because of things that organically happened earlier in the story and came back to bite them. And so But the trick is, the writer's skill is that those things, even if they're not very apparent, still have to have a beginning, middle, and end arc. Yes. They have to. They cannot feel aimless, because you are telling a story, and real life is not a story unless by coincidence. In that way. And so it's that, like treading that line between making sure that you do actually have a narrative and a story, but are letting things develop organically. I remember I read forever ago Stephen King's On Writing, which is still my favorite thing I've ever read about how to write something. And it's not like, here's what you do, but his thing is like, he thinks of the setting, he thinks of the stuff, he thinks of the characters. Yes, exactly. And then he kind of lets the characters do and say what they're going to say. And what that means is, I don't know, people who've never written stuff or whatever, but like, they start talking, you start writing it down, and then things happen. Now, you have to know, hey, this is crap, or like, you have to recognize if it's forming into something that's worth a damn, and some people never do, and it doesn't matter, whatever. But I always think of that in that way. So, moving back, in that essay, Remender is talking about that, and he sort of couches in the idea that, like, he's a huge David Lynch fan, and how he talks about it. It was really interesting to me, because he did bring up, he was like, the amount of information, what they're telling you, when you're telling it, and then how much you expect the reader to fill in on their own. And that is what I was thinking about the entire time that I was reading the book. And I thought, and I was wondering, like actively, like, is this on purpose? Like, it's just short of being too vague? And then he spoke to it directly, and I felt so validated. It was magnificent. Now, I'm not a big David Lynch fan. I don't really like David Lynch from what I know, but I never got too far into it, so I don't really know. Are you a David Lynch person? I like Twin Peaks. That's that's about where I get on and off the ride. But whatever, you can take stuff from people all the time. You have your own voice or whatever. You know what I do? I'll tell you what I do love. Yeah. I don't know if he's still doing it. For a long time during the pandemic, David Lynch was issuing weather reports from the same exact spot in his house every single day. So he would say, like, it's Friday, June 27th, and the weather. And it's. And he says, he always would say, like, can you believe it? It's a Friday once again. And Julie and I definitely started doing the, like, can you believe it? That's fantastic. Yeah. He seems like a very quirky, charming, funny person. Sure. For the weird things. I don't know anything about him because the movies just creep me out. I don't really like being creeped out. That's the thing. And I guess, anyway, so to get back to the thing, Rick Remender here, he built a world. It's clearly thought out, but
the birds at the beginning who live in a world where you have to sacrifice one of your kids. There was an awful lot of emotional
Yes.
realism put into that, where I was like, oh, he's dressed like Michael Landon.
But this family is broken.
Yeah, and it,
well, when you learn the truth about Michael Landon, not Michael Landon, the character he's playing, Paul.
He
was in a murder posse, Josh.
Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah,
I don't remember. You remember better than I do.
No. This was never in the show. I'm saying the real Ingalls family. The dad was very likely in a murder posse that went and took out a family of serial killers. Huh. It's a whole thing.
All right. Yeah. But like what it very first seems like, oh, it's just, like country boy abuse, is more than that. There's a whole other thing going on that doesn't fit into like your idea of Little House on the Prairie. And then you make this enormous jump to this other planet where there's a princess and a king who's kind of a sun, and then he lights up the planet, which turns out to be the sun to this planet that we've been spending time on otherwise. There's a lot going on here in a short amount of time. Max Fiumara, who is somebody who Mara, not Mura. I knew him first from the Joe Kelly series
Four
about
Eyes.
dragons. Four Eyes, exactly. He was great. This is a lot like Leandro Fernandez, like great and stylistic when he started, and is now like got the system. He's polished,
Yeah. I mean, he blasted out of the gates with that book, and
but a lot of that was on style and brashness and whatever. And like here, it's just like, oh, you've built the skills too. You have the package, because you have to be to work with Rick Remender. Rick Remender has impeccable taste in working with artists, and like like the thing where people say, well, if you really made it if you go work with Mark Millar and then never work in mainstream comics again, but if you work with Remender, you might not be famous, but you're fucking good. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it's the guy knows how to match himself with artists for sure. Dave McHead, great colorist. Russ Wood, like the best. I don't know what to think of it, but I was really impressed by it and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And I tend to be a little bit more hit or miss on Remender's work. Generally, I feel like his stuff either completely works for me or it doesn't work at all.
I feel like I'm like 75%.
I think I'm closer to 50-50.
Fair. And I think there's a little part of him that would almost appreciate that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the stories really are like it's always a Remender, because he puts so much of himself in the story, as far as I can, I'm projecting to a certain extent, but I think that's the case. But the stories themselves are very different. They're set in different places. They're always fantastic. And I don't mean by they're good, like the premises are fantastic in all sorts of different ways. Time traveling scientist who was trying to validate himself to his dad. I'm trying to think the scumbag, whatever the fuck that was.
Even going all the way back to Fear.
Yeah. And I love that about it. Like, he's a guy who, really goes for it each time. He's working out stories about his anxiety, but he's not telling us, like, it's almost like this one thing where I was just talking earlier, like everything doesn't have to be supernatural. Well, Rick is the exception to that. It's like he can do whatever he wants to, because when he does a thing, he does it for a reason, and he fills it with so much humanity that you can make it as fantastic as possible. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like, it was just like, I didn't know what it was going to be, because I knew it could go either way, and I was like, all right, that was satisfying and meaty and new, and exquisitely rendered. So
you sticking with it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'll stick with it. Me too.
What are we giving it?
Rating wise, it's up there. I don't think this would have been my pick.
No,
but I also don't ascribe to the good Sir Kilpatrick's system of the pick informs the rating.
No. I'm gonna say 4. I'm giving it 4. I'm giving a solid, strong 4.
I might go 4.25.
That's fair. It's all, like I felt it was low, but I don't want to. That's where I'm going for now. It's no shame about a 4. No shame about a 4 at all.
But it's building. The story is still building.
Oh yeah, no, like you did a lot of work here elegantly, I believe, and that's the good stuff. If you would like to vote for the patron pick each week, and you should, don't ignore those. Actually, I don't know. Does it come in an email? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not eligible.
You might have to go to Patreon, but I'm not sure. I should know that, but I don't. That's just, there it is. It's not because I don't care. It's just not my job, and I got other shit to do. Patreon.com.
It's not. You're saying it's not what you're about.
It's not. It is. I'm about it. I just don't do it.
I thought you were about respect for women.
Always. Patreon.com/iFanboy. You can directly support the show. Media explodes, the talk explodes, the book explodes, all that stuff was resurrected because of the patrons. There's communities on Facebook and Discord. There's monthly patron hangout. It's a good time. It's the right thing to do. I can tell you it directly helps my life a heck of a lot. In addition to the support that it provides, it also gives me a place to do this. And I need to do this. I love doing this. I love being with my friends and talking about comics that I love so much. There is new merch available.
Ooh.
It's tier exclusive. So your patron contribution depend. You get there's choices. There's stuff. It's all written out there. It's going to be better than me. But you can get a shirt. You can get a tote bag. Whatever. There's different things. Go look. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thank you to everyone who finds that we are valuable enough. Part of your life to contribute monetarily to. It means the absolute world to us. And thank you. You're great people, and you make us feel good.
I think I'm on a t-shirt hiatus as strongly suggested by my wife. So it's been a while since I've gotten an iFanboy shirt, but I still have my original intern shirt.
Nice. I think I don't have any more. I had boxes and boxes downstairs for a while, and I was like, these have to go. So a bunch of them went to Goodwill. I really want to see somebody walking around in one who has no idea what it was. I think it'd be the best thing ever. iFanboy shirts and items over at iFanboy.com. There was recently we had the Pride shirt. Half of those proceeds went to the It Gets Better project. There are 13 designs on shirts. You can go to iFanboy.com/support where you find a PayPal link if that's how you wanted to do it. If you want to do it, iFanboy.com/Amazon. Clear enough. Bookshop.org is the other place where we put links on there, and that helps you place orders on the internet that will get fulfilled by independent bookstores, which is a good thing. We gotta move here, folks. Every week, one of those patrons who gives it the $5 or higher level gets a stupid superpower, a silly superpower, a great superpower, a bad superpower. They are bestowed with some kind of superpower. This week, Stephen T. Sifert, or Sifert, is bestowed with the following power. He has a tiny Jack Aubrey on one shoulder and a tiny Stephen Maturin on the other shoulder. These are the two protagonists of Patrick O'Brien's 21-chapter seafaring story. You may remember a film from 2003 with Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany as those two characters. And so the deal is that Jack Aubrey, they're great friends, but they're very, very different. Aubrey, kind of dumb, great sea captain, childish and stupid, but good at heart, and amazing at being a sea captain. And then Maturin, he's Irish. He's a genius. He is
basically he's a Charles Darwin.
He's a man of science. Yes, he is, but he's they're both beautifully conflicted people. They have their foibles. When you read a story about 18th century seamen, they're usually not flawed and sort of as complex as these people, and they are. And so, should you have stories, you would hear them in their 18th century patois. Discussing how they thought you should go about it. And sometimes they play violin and cello together because they love doing that together, which is a nice thing. So they would be there and they would help you, or they would annoy you, but they're there.
I mean, do you think this power works better if Steven's job or life has him out at sea from time to time? Like,
I do not think so. I think that this person is either going to be familiar with it and be tickled, or be completely unfamiliar with it and feel like he got screwed over here.
Would this, I mean, if you gained this power, would it change the course of your life? Because I might consider I might just have to take to the sea.
I think that maybe it would affect me in the extent that, something I would maybe be afraid of, Jack would be like, simply capital. You must, upon my word, you must go ahead. Sharp's the word and quick's the action.
Gotcha.
That
was a terrible Russell Crowe impression.
I don't If I can be honest with you, it's not Russell Crowe that I was doing in my head.
Right. When you read the books versus the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because I feel like you and I have talked about this. We're both mountain people. We're not necessarily ocean people.
I'm definitely not a beach person.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't trust the ocean. I don't think we should have anything to do with the ocean. But one of the things I love about those sailors from that time is that most of them couldn't fucking swim. They were on that boat. They did all the boat stuff, but they weren't like, oh man, I can't wait to get, into the ocean. It's not that. It's about being on the ocean.
Yeah.
It's nice.
A ship is safest at harbor, but that's not what ships are made for.
It's so fascinating.
It's so, I know this is a story about two dudes, but it's also so romantic. Like it's
100%. Oh God. It's really lovely. I'm going cool. For it. I'm going all the way. I promise I won't mention them on the show again. I'm sorry, everyone. I have two good questions here. And we're already a little long.
It's your call. I think we should do one of them, but
Nope. We're going to do them both, but we're going to, the first one you're going to read, and here's the rule.
Oh yeah, it's got an R there.
You get two. I didn't want to fart around.
Yeah, good.
You get two answers.
All right. Scott from Oregon writes, I've been going to conventions the last 15 plus years, and this year I'm actually tabling at a few. It's a weird feeling going from attendee to exhibitor. I saw you guys do a panel at ECCC in Seattle one year, and since then I've been wondering how your con going experience changed over the years. Were you attending conventions much before iFanboy? Did iFanboy becoming a cultural phenomenon, and you covering conventions for the site change your experience significantly? Any great memories?
I haven't been to a con I haven't really been to a con in about 10 years. I've sort of dropped in on a couple in Boston here and there, but the question, like, did it change we're not a cultural phenomenon, maybe among our small culture at one moment quickly, but yes, that did change it. Having worked it, like, I don't tend to want to do the same things that most people going to cons would want. I don't need comics.
Right. I've never had any interest in a con exclusive piece of merch.
Right. I don't want stuff. And fortunately for me, I've actually met most of the people that I wanted to, so I don't really want an autograph. Mostly there's things. I'm not made of stone or whatever, but it's different. To me, the con became a thing where I got to see friends. And, I've said this to anybody who'll listen for my whole life, comic book professionals are my favorite people. And for me to be, it's not my full-time job, but for me to be accepted as sort of one of those people, as part of that tribe, as knowing enough without ever having published any comics on my own, I actually am greatly honored by that. And I love. I feel the worst thing about not going is I miss some friends. Mike Norton, we talked about him earlier.
I mean, it in a lot of ways, it was sort of like going to camp, right? You see all your camp friends.
Yeah, but with the
people you only see once or twice a year, maybe more times if you're going to a lot of cons. But like you have an instant rapport with, you can pick up right where you left off the last time you hung out,
and really like smart, intelligent, funny, creative people. Are the people who I met in the comic industry.
And the thing about going to cons when you're like working the con, it provides a different level of like focus, right? Like you've got a thing to do that's not just walking around. Because I took a friend who'd never been to a convention to New York Comic Con one year, and he was like, so did they just set up a mall? Like, this is just a place for people to shop and spend money? And I was like, I mean, I guess that is a function of it, but there's more.
And meet celebrities, but meet is an air quoted thing. Like, I've never wanted to do that. I mean, like, I feel like the only time I would ever go like pay to get an autograph or a photo would be like kind of ironically. And I feel like that's like minimum. I want to have a real experience with a person. If I don't, then it doesn't count for me.
Yes.
I feel that way. That said, I got William Hootkins, who played Jack Porkins in Star Wars and Eckhart and Batman. He signed my action figure and I paid him $10 for it. And I'd do it 100 times over. And that actually wasn't ironic, but also that was a really long time ago. But, it's such a weird thing, and some people have different kinds of experiences with people. And I don't begrudge anybody that. Okay, so
it's a really interesting little microcosm.
Yes, it is.
And I also have not been to a convention in about 10 years, and I don't know. In the post-pandemic era,
like you probably wouldn't go and have anything you do, right? Because you go around. Like the last time I went in Boston, I went and I hooked up with people. We just one in Manchester too, that in New Hampshire, that the guys who run the comic shop, I don't go to it, but they're friends of mine and they're awesome. They do a great little con here. That's it's a great little show. But what I would do is I'd find people I know you know, and be like, oh man, I haven't seen you forever. And like, that's the last time I saw a lot of these friends who I know from social media, you know, I only can keep up with on social media, but I'm off most of that now. So, but like to that last time I went to one in Boston, like I saw Mike Norton. I hadn't seen him forever. We used to go for dinner at the end of the San Diego show every time. You know, we talked about guitars for a while. And, you know, that's what I like. You know, it was years and years ago, but like I had dinner with another guy. I had, you know, they're all guys. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't have friends, but let's be honest. I have nothing against it. That seems to be how it goes for the most part. Apparently, if you run a site in iFanboy, you're exclusive to a certain extent that I didn't plan for and I feel bad about. Anyway, you have like, okay, we're gonna say one. Do you have a great con memory?
You said we were allowed to have two.
I know, but I changed it because we talked for a while.
Oh, dang.
Go ahead. Do two. Don't tell me meeting us or anything like that. I don't want to hear it.
No, I mean, I did meet you guys at a convention, but like that was, you know, I did not know that was I didn't know that meeting was like going to matter for a big chunk of my life moving forward.
Fair.
So, you know, it's as a memory, it's still just kind of a fuzzy one.
Right.
Two memories. First one is sort of an after con party at, WonderCon, back when WonderCon was held in San Francisco, or I think it was WonderCon. It was some show happening in San Francisco that brought in a lot of people, and Isotope decided to throw a party for Brian Azzarello, who's a writer I like fine, but, you know, I also have heard that they have somewhat of a not prickly personality, but they're just not like the warmest, fuzziest person. And Ash, the guy who usually bought beer for the parties, just because like James and Kirsten are cocktail people, called me up and said, Ryan, I'm really sick. I can't get the beer for this party. But like Brian Azzarello has specifically requested like local craft California beer because apparently he's a big beer guy. And he's like, so can you go to City Beer Store, which is a great little beer spot in San Francisco, and buy like $200 worth of beer only from California and take it to Kirsten and James as they set up for the party and they'll pay you back. And I said, yeah, great, no problem. So I do that.
Your next story is going to be shorter, by the way.
It is. I show up with like this case of beer, and I give it to Kirsten, and she literally just reaches into the tip jar from the cocktails and pulls out enough cash to like pay me back right away. And then I'm just enjoying the party, having a good time, and I hear that Brian Azzarello has finished the case.
Jesus.
Like he drank. I thought I was getting him beer to like take home to Chicago. And so I managed to bump into him before either of us leaves. And I just said, hey, you know, nice to meet you. I hope you enjoyed the party. I happened to buy all the beer that it sounds like you enjoyed. So I just hope I made some good selections. And he just leans in and shakes my hand and looks me dead in the eye and goes, the beer was exquisite. And then walked away. And I was like, perfect. I don't ever need another interaction with this person ever again.
Yeah, that's a good one to leave it on.
Yeah. The other short story, much, much shorter, is at the end of San Diego Comic-Con every year, Bill Willingham used to throw a party in his suite that he had, and it was just a really awesome place to like wind down after the convention and meet a bunch of cool people, and people like, you know, Robert Kirkman would just pop in and say hello and stuff like that. So I have a lot of memories from those sort of winding down the con.
This is before the mogul Kirkman. Yeah. This was
I mean, I think there was already a show. I don't remember. It was years ago.
Yeah. I mean, my memories are largely about I have so many. It's kind of, it's like walking around on the floor and those awkward things, and like that how we went from being dorks who were kind of a non-entity to people who like got some respect and by people who we really liked and you know, access in that way and would have sort of good conversations. I'll give you one. I had asked at one point to, I think it was a little star fucking at that point still, but like Brian Posehn, who is sort of comic book adjacent, was at a table and he'd written something that year, and I was like, hey, can we talk to you? And he was totally like, he's like, didn't want to do it, you know, but he did. Mm-hmm. And I, you know, we did one of our short little dumb interviews that were, you know, 5 minutes or whatever, and when we finished, I said thanks. He goes, those were really smart questions. I was like, thank you. You know, like I was like, because that's you say that to me, you're saying exactly what I want to hear. You are tickling my flattery spot just right. You know, because the idea of wasting somebody's time and being inane, that's the last thing I want. And so,
yeah, I mean, that was basically how Willingham and I first became friends. Is he was doing a signing at the shop I worked at, and you know, I was kind of asked to be.
This would be a third story.
Well, I was just asked to be the guy to like keep the weirdos at bay or keep the line moving. And Bill and I just were chatting, and like at the end of the conversation, Bill told my boss, who's kind of a legendary comic book retailer in the Northern California area, I was like, man, that kid you hired knows everything. about these comics that he's selling. I was like, awesome. That is so.
And the other one would be, you talked about your after. We had a tradition after San Diego. By the way, Scott, you went to. If you were at the Emerald City one, I think that was like my favorite show I ever did. Like just as an overall.
I never
experience.
made it to that one, but I always heard really good things. I
only went 1 year, but like it was just that was a great time at that show, and I always wanted to go back to it. There was a place down the road that had great cinnamon rolls. The other thing is, after San Diego, we would get dinner ourselves at iFanboy, and then friends of ours and some comics folk. We were at the San Diego Strip Club, which is a steak place where you cook your own steak, whatever.
Yeah, I went to that now. 1 year. It was
and I remember we were talking about. I'm not like dropping names because it's not like Mike Norton's like a huge star, but he was a friend of ours. And like he kept ordering different flavored margaritas. One after another, and it was like, this one's good, this one's not good. And I just remember, and like the 1 year Darwin Cook came, and we're like, I can't believe Darwin Cook has come to our thing, and I know that it still sounds like, but like he's just a person who we respected so much, and he thought, I'll hang out with these guys, they're worth my time. And that, again, it's incredibly validating and neat, and we hung out, we talked about watches, and there are other guys. That's the last one. This is me being dumb. Scotty Young, he's been a friend of ours forever before he was, the most popular cover guy who did the babies, but he had some clout and was getting bigger and whatever. And we're grilling our steaks. And I said, if you turn it 45 degrees, it gets those. He goes, I'm an artist, I know. And I was like, fair enough, Scott. I think of it all the time about just being an idiot. We're like, did you know that? Yes. So that's the opposite of the other thing I said, but it's fine. That was great. I'm lying. I'm gonna save this next one. It's too long. I got to get back to life. So if you want to send in an email, contact@ifanboy.com is the place you do it. If you want to send emails for our Media Explode show as well, which is our non-comics show that we do monthly, and we do mailbags every, I don't know, half a year, whatever, 6 months or something. Put Media Explode in the title. You can send them there. We save them all up. This past week, we had a Media Explode come out. We did the summer mailbag. We answered mail. So if you send it in now, probably not good to happen right away, but still do it. We did summer mailbag, and we talked about Oppenheimer, the film that's really showing about nuclear stuff. I'm tired.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't?
No.
Are you interested in it?
I have a toddler.
I know, but here's the thing about that. There are not a lot. I don't really know. I don't think of you as being a big cinema guy, but if you're a cinema person, there's not a lot of movies that are made for you to go see in a cinema, and you should, if that's a thing.
I would like to get to Oppenheimer. Yeah.
Yeah, you should. Science. It's science and morality and all that stuff. And anyway, Booksplode came out a little before that. Connor and I talked about It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth by, tell me her name because I can't remember it.
I don't remember.
I'm so sorry. I'm this. What do you want?
I want to come back on Booksplode.
Okay, we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Here, you read this 400-page Superman book that I apparently volunteered myself for. You do it for me.
I was really excited that you did a non-superhero Booksplode, and I would love to. I have a couple of suggestions.
Thorogood. Oh, that's good. Zoe Thorogood. Yes. Justice League War World is an animated movie, I guess.
Yes, Animation Brain Trust.
Yes, that'll happen at some point. Connor is he's no longer on the high seas, as far as I can tell. We get sporadic messages via pigeon, and to be honest, he had to be pretty vague about it. I think the law was
the last one
him.
I got, it was a disc of wood that had been cut from a tree, and the message was carved in the tree rings. It was.
Yeah, he does that sometimes.
Yeah.
That's improv, Ryan. There should be a New Talksplode this month. I can't promise you that will happen within the confines of this month of August, but I think a thing is going to happen that you'll like. Usually you do. Not to toot my own horn. If we do movies, we might do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm not sure when that'll happen, or if. Probably won't do Blue Beetle, but that's also not a promise. But we're not going to do Blue Beetle.
Well, I had offered to maybe do Blue Beetle, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's true. Take us out here, and then yeah. Yeah.
You can find our library of over 1,300 shows and counting over at iFanboy.com or wherever podcasts are sold. Follow us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram to find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out, and sometimes for the best of the week in panels. If you would like to try to locate Connor Kilpatrick, you can maybe check out his Instagram at CS Kilpatrick. It's J.A. Flanagan on Instagram, and I'm at Ryan Haupt on Instagram, and I'm not sure what this X thing is anymore. Subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy where you'll find...
You must be on the board of directors.
of X.
They don't know either.
Where you'll find all our own video shows and where we post this show every week. Please consider writing a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, not Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. I happen to be Ryan.
And that would make me Josh.